Hey gamers, welcome to episode 3 of the PTGC podcast. Today's topic is an ongoing dilemma in the gaming industry. If you haven't heard, large gaming companies have been laying off large amounts of employees. It isn't only gaming companies that are doing this, but we will focus on them today and the impact we will see from it. Starting off, I would like to welcome my co-host, Gio and Mike.
What's up, guys?
Hello.
And with that introduction, I would like to also ask them a follow-up question. What do you guys know of these layoffs? Because as I'm in the industry, I know probably just first-hand accounts, but from outside the industry, what do you guys know?
I'll start off, I guess.
Mike.
The thing that I have noticed is just the biggest thing is the Microsoft layoffs when they acquired Blizzard. I read articles on it and know that was coming. And I mean, even though there was such a big deal for Microsoft buying out Blizzard, it took like what, 20 months, right? It took a 20-month freaking battle for them to actually get it. And then following that, they were laying off people. I think the number is pretty, like 19,000 roles. People were out of jobs, so 10,000 plus that would be affected. I mean, that's as far as I know for the Microsoft. I haven't really seen others, but maybe Gio has.
I think some of the things that caught my attention was last year, 2023, consumers spent $57 billion on games. Like, to me, that number sounds like crazy. And then I looked up the revenue of video games for last year as a whole, as an industry. It's $184 billion. And it's kind of confusing to hear those kind of numbers and hear that video games makes more money than both the music industry and the movie industry combined. I heard a crazy number. It's hearsay so far, but apparently Grand Theft Auto 6 has a budget of $2 billion. At first, I thought that number was ridiculous, but then I thought about it when I heard, okay, if video games makes more money than movie industry and music industry combined, that kind of budget kind of seems reasonable in a sense, because movies have stupid budgeting. It's like you think of Avatar and some of the Star Wars movies, there are $1 billion plus in production. And you think about how much are going into these games now. To hear these layoffs going on, 10,500 layoffs last year, and already 6,000 in the first 6 weeks of 2024. For me, as a gamer, I'm like, when you hear those numbers of money, you're like, how does this make sense? With so much money coming in, how can they sustain the kind of staffing they currently have? I don't understand it, because they've been positive. I mean, 2021 was a boom that nobody expected, but because of the pandemic, obviously influenced 2020 to 2021 sales. But it's been relatively around the same those last 2 years, so I'm kind of like missing it, I guess. Where's there not enough money to go around?
I don't think it's about the money. I think it's just more in terms of doing more with less. And also, the introduction of AI. Sometimes some things can be done by AI. Maybe they just don't need the budget. But I mean, with the case for like Microsoft taking over Blizzard, there's always going to be layoffs from people that are from Blizzard because they may not share the same vision as Microsoft. That could be also the case. And I think there's a lot of factors in it. I also think that, AI plays a role. And as I said, AI can play a role of reducing the workforce. And that can cause problems.
So the reasoning that the companies have given for these layoffs, and I'll go into which companies have done what, is from what is a follow up to what Gio said. It is not that they're not making money, is that they're not making the money that they expected they would. They expected more. They expected more profit. Some games just flat out just undersold, like Forspoken, and then just some games that just barely edged out on profit, like Spider-Man 2. So these are popular, like AAA games that they spent massive amount of money on, and they either did not make any money or any profit, or they barely edged by with profit.
But Gerard, not to interrupt you, but you said Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
Do you know about the article where they said that in December, hack files revealed that PlayStation games Marvel Spider-Man 2 tripled its budget from the last game to more than $300 million? Those hacks also revealed that PlayStation had mulled the idea of selling the third Spider-Man game into 2 parts, raising the consumer asking price to $140. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
Oh. What do you think about that? Do you think the numbers are really there? Do you think these companies are really caring about the people, or are they hiding stuff?
That's a topic for another day. Because today is about the layoffs, not about what the things are and how
I'm
they
just
look.
talking about how the money is there. Like you're saying, to the layoffs, they're not expecting these.
They're expecting returns, and they're not hitting those returns.
But if they're lying about the returns, you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, they can only lie to the consumers, but they cannot lie to like the government and business bureaus and financial reports. So eventually their quarters will come out because they're a public company, and it will be shown anyway. They could, but also Sony is one of those companies that is also that we brought it up. Now that I'm thinking about it, is also one of those people who have leaked rumors that they're going to lay off people again. That is leaked information. It's just a rumor currently, but there is a rumor going around that Sony/PlayStation will lay off more people in this upcoming months, specifically targeting the Insomnia studio, which made Spider-Man.
That's great.
So that's why I'm saying, like, we'll talk more about what studios are doing what, but yeah, the studios' excuses have been they haven't been reaching their goals in profits. There's one of those studios, we might as well just start naming them, is Riot Games, which just laid off 11% of their entire employee base.
I read that.
Okay. Yes. Now, we all play League of Legends, so I hope we all know Riot and things like that. But yeah, so Riot laid off 336 I think employees. I think it's actually more than that actually. They laid off 11% of their entire staff, which includes a game studio company that they kind of had off branch, which is called Riot Forge, which is responsible for making single player Riot games. Okay, so they go out to third party studios, small gaming studios, and they ask them to make a game with the Riot IP. So they make Bandle Tales, Song of Nunu, Ruin King, which did turn out to be like the game sold. They weren't like underselling. It's just they didn't get a profit out of it. They expected. They were basically not making as much money as they were putting in. And for Riot specifically, they have a whole bunch of big projects going on. There's the Project L, which is their fighting game, which recently got a demo at Evo, and that's currently in the works. Then there's also the MMO that there's currently under work. So Riot has a lot of things going on right now, and we don't know how the layoffs were either because of them or were affected. Those game projects were affected by the layoffs. There are some I don't want to say hackers. What I want to say, deep divers that have been looking to see what projects got hit by the layoffs, and it looks like the MMO was fine. That's what people have been looking into. Another one, and actually this may not be a gaming company, but this will surprise you, and I want to hear your feedback afterwards. Twitch laid off 500 employees as well. The game streaming service, which is I would just say an overall streaming service because they have just chatting as well as a genre, but it is mostly for game streaming. That is 35% of its staff. That is more than a quarter of the people that work at Twitch got laid off.
How many did you say again?
What happened?
How many people exactly was it again?
500.
So 500 is 35% of their workforce?
Yes.
Yeah,
Not a large team.
It's
But
Twitch.
That's an astronomical amount of staffing to let go at one time. That's more than a third.
I just wonder how it's gonna affect the streamers, how the quality of the site.
What do you think?
Itself.
What do you think drove that though? What's the reasoning behind that?
So the reasoning, sort of same line as the gaming industry, is just like they weren't hitting their projected goals. But long story short, they were spending way too much money to streamers. They spent over $1 billion in 2023 for streamers. Okay, they're just paying for streamers. Spent $1 billion, and the amount of money they got back did not meet the requirement they need to grow.
So, in other words, they set a high expectation and didn't get anything in return.
That's
Not enough. Not enough. I say not get anything because they are high streamers, but they just didn't get the expectation.
well, that's the thing. I don't think they took into account the boom of 2020, 2021 was mainly due to the pandemic. And then they started to base their profits on pandemic years, which was, I mean, let's be realistic. The boost came because most people were home and stuck at home and needed some form of entertainment. So me thinking, okay, well, these investors are a little smarter than they seem to be. You would think they'll know, hey, these numbers were kind of inflated because of the pandemic. So maybe we should have a more reasonable, I guess you say, target for profitability, especially with the year everything's starting to open back up. People wanting to go back out. People ain't trying to stay home the same way they were. So that's where my confusion gets, because I read something with involving Epic Games, which is a multi-billion-dollar revenue generator for them, is Fortnite, and they make the Unreal Engine software, which so many different games use. Yet they let go of 830 people because investors wanted a certain level of profitability, which is it's just insane to me, because it's like all I hear is greed. That's all I hear. Greed is driving this. I understand technology has evolved, but at the same time, it just sounds like greed.
Yeah. And I'll put a pin on that. I will put a pin on that, and I'll get back to the boom in 2021, because I would like to bring up the reason why this is happening, but let me go off one more and bring up one more company, which is, and I know Mike has already brought this up, is the Microsoft layoff of the 1,900 workers from Activision Blizzard. Yeah, and Xbox. That's 9% of the game division. So they are laying off that much. Exactly same reason. If you don't know, the CEO is Phil Spencer. And he said that it was part of a larger execution plan that would reduce areas of overlap, and they looked at redundant jobs between the two companies and wanted to remove that redundancy. There's another little off-topic info is that this was promised not to happen. These layoffs were promised not to happen to the FTC originally when they first proposed the plan to acquire Activision Blizzard, which was 20 months ago. And now that they've done it, people are like, well, things have changed in 20 months. You maybe shouldn't have taken that long to approve. But yeah, so those are the three companies that are the recent, but that's not the only companies. As you pointed out, Epic's also doing it. There are also small gaming companies that are doing that. And as I mentioned earlier, that even there's probably more in the future, rumors of Sony doing it as well. So back to the pin is, why is this happening? Why are these layoffs happening? And majority of the reasons of that, they didn't hit their projected growths or their projected goals. But really, it is because of what you said. In 2020 and 2021, everyone was inside for a very specific reason. Governments weren't letting people out, and people were basically getting sick and dying. So no one wanted a chance. So I don't want to say the economy stopped, but the economy for the outside world took a large hit and paused that day and those years. The technology industry did not get impacted the way the rest of the industries did, because for our work, we can do our work at home through infrastructure that we created a long time ago and that we use to this very day. We are able to work at home and just submit our work as long as we have internet. And that did not go away during the pandemic. And that became very obvious when people who were stuck at home started gaming more, because what else they're going to do? They're going to watch TV, Netflix, or just play video games. And that increase in demand had to be met. So video game companies that were profiting were trying to meet that demand because they couldn't meet that demand prior because they weren't planning for it. So they started hiring a lot to meet this demand. And some would say they overhired. So when the pandemic restrictions were lifted and people were able to go outside and demand was no longer there, projects that were overhired were still underway because they needed those people at the time. They were paying for those people, and the games came out, which had increased budget because they overhired, and those games did not meet the demands or the goals that were set for very obvious reasons. Not a lot of people are going to be playing them, or things like that. And there are other reasons. Like I would throw out, like, some of the games that have been coming out have been either not to the quality that us, like, hardcore gamers or just regular gamers expected from them. A good example is Diablo 4, Forspoken, the Suicide Squad. And then there's some games that came out that made such a large impact, it infected other games that were also nearby. A good example is Baldur's Gate 3, recently Power World. Games that are just so good for the community and gamers that we just fall in love with it, and then we compare other games to them, and they were like, why don't you do this? And these are more for, like, the AAA games and things like that. So with all these compounding issues, profits took a large hit for these gaming companies, and some of them, like Riot Games, who've said that, like, we've tried everything that we can, and now we're just ending up having to do this. It really boils down to a lack of, and I will point out certain jobs roles for this, a lack of supervision by managers and no foresight, no future seeking. This is all in the moment, has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hire now to meet this demand, rather than think of what will happen after the boom. They just needed to meet the boom. They didn't want to be left behind by the other companies that are just making money. And that is to say, the same thing as, if you make the money now, you're going to hurt later.
Well, it's also just like I said, like, I would think these people, have some kind of financial, like, foresight, like you said, to think, all right, yeah, we're booming right now, but this ain't gonna last. It's just not going to. We're not gonna be able to sustain this because this demand won't be there once things go back to somewhat of normal. And that's where, to me, it's like, that's just a lack of planning. you didn't take that into account. You didn't take it into, you know, your decision making when you did this, and when you plan for the future years. Like 2022 should have gave you a good idea that 2023 was going to start going back the other way a little bit. But I don't know. That's just how I look at it. To me, like I said, it's just greed.
Yeah.
But like during the boom, I guess they could just expect it. Maybe they didn't really plan for it to kind of like bottom out. They expected if they produce and meet the demands and the quality of the games are there, that the people were still gonna be there at the end of the day. But I mean,
well, they are still there, because there was growth. There was still growth over revenue year over year. It's just not to the expected amount. Like Gerard is saying, there was an expected amount, and it was really ridiculous.
High expectations.
No. Yeah, but it was really ridiculous because I think I read a number by 2026. So I told you they generated 184 billion last year. By 2026, they're aiming or was expecting to be about like 250 billion in revenue, which is insane.
I don't know where they think this money is coming from.
That's what I mean. Like, how can you have that kind of, like expectation when you realize the years after the boom are starting to like slow down? Like, you're still having growth, but it's not to the same increase percentage that you had during the boom. It was a reason for a boom. That's why it's called a boom.
Yeah, and I brought up Riot already, but like these gaming companies have made some questionable decisions already with like these employees and things like that. So like Twitch, the layoffs and the cuts were to make to like hit that growth and to do well, but then the follow-up is that, and I don't know if you know, because neither of you are streamers, but like they made changes to their payout system as well after these layoffs. So they made changes to the way they pay streamers. In the long run, it's less money. So there's a whole big Twitch fiasco, I would say, where Twitch is now paying people, depending on where you are, less money from a Prime sub, and that's a lot less revenue. And more people have been saying, like, hey, in Twitch, the real way to make money is through ads, and you playing ad after ad after ad. And it's just become, it feels like Twitch is now marketing just like, hey, we are not going to focus more about growing. Instead, we're just going to focus on exploiting our streamers and make them run all the ads in order to make money. Because we make money off their ads because the company is paying us to run their ads. And if we force our streamers to run ads so that they could get paid, we end up getting the larger chunk of it.
Do you think more streamers are going to leave Twitch? I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen any Twitch besides the retirement of Pokimane.
I mean, Pokimane is huge. Like, Pokimane was the face of Twitch and was exclusively Twitch. There have been other streamers who've left Twitch or have started to do multi-streaming, which is the future, it seems. Twitch has obviously said, like, we would like our streamers to be multi-streaming. We will not hold back on any more exclusive deals. YouTube is also another one that said they won't be signing any more exclusive deals with streamers. So those tech industries, but mostly importantly, gaming, streaming is also, in my opinion, taking an impact from these layoffs and these overgrowths, because now if you're gaming streaming or a streamer for games, you are less sure about your contracts and your partnerships, and you don't know if those are going to change in the future, like it happened to Twitch. We don't know if YouTube is going to make that same change of like different types of monetization or different types of ads you need to run or force of ads to run in order to be monetized. We don't know if these changes are going to have a larger impact these layoffs is already affected the game streaming. But what other, and this is going to be I don't want to say opinion-based question, but it's definitely a assumption. What other industries do you think these layoffs will have? And then this is not just like the gaming industry, but the tech industries that are overall.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me because like I got to go back to the point where you said they're going to use streamers basically in a sense to exploit something that'll give them a greater gain in the long run. Like I said before, this just reiterates my point of saying it's just driven by greed. At the end of the day, all these decisions being made is just greed because at the end of the day, it's all more money in their pockets. And they're coming up with reasons or excuses to put people out of jobs at a time that they know the economy is not where it was. And probably going to be a little bit till we get back to where it was anytime soon because it's going to be a while. So I see it as instead of lowering their expectations, they're just freeing up budgeting space to make sure they pad their pockets in the end of the day. That's how I look at it.
I mean, like I said, the tech industry as a whole, there has been multiple layoffs of many companies, like the Cisco company. I read an article, just randomly read an article about Cisco. They laid off because they're trying to aim more towards AI. Then you have like Mozilla laying off workers. It's a bigger impact to the tech industry because then it's just going to cause maybe the effect of quality of work, or it might affect the movie industry. It might just go into the movie industry. It might affect them because they use technology to make their movies. So where does the line draw of laying all these workers off? Like, it's gonna affect music, it's gonna affect movies, it's already affecting games, streaming, like all these layoffs. Where is it gonna stop? Everybody's trying to do more with less, and I don't think that's ever a good recipe for success.
No, and that's kind of like what we're going through in the retail industry and a lot of different industries. Food industry suffering from the same kind of tactic. I don't understand why they're doing that because, I mean, I can tell you now, more people like now retailers do freaking mental health like days and mental health freaking you'll get like depending on your insurance, you'll get like free like, you know, therapy and stuff like that, which is crazy to me.
Well, no, because mental health is a serious thing.
No. What I'm saying is that they feel like they have to have that in the workplace, like because they know they're stressing their management out. They know they're stressing their workers out. Unlike, you know, in other countries that don't do that, for instance, because a lot of these gaming companies are stationed in like Cali, and Cali is expensive as hell. So like just maintaining their offices and stuff cost them a lot of money. Instead of relocating, thinking of other ways to save money and still profit, they're just getting rid of people. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh no, yeah.
Like there's a lot of different options they could have taken and putting people out of jobs.
It's gonna increase the mental health issue because the anxiety and the work load. It's just gonna affect their mental state with less workers.
So,
Go
ahead. Oh, I was gonna say the relocation thing is a good point that Gio made. I'll tell you a reason why majority of game companies don't, and then you can tell me how dumb it sounds.
All right, no, it's not just kidding.
Oh, I mean, it's pretty sure there are games industries don't usually run their own servers for their games. Hey gamers, Gerard from the future. Wanted to make a correction about what current President Gerard is saying. As I was editing this, I realized the error of my ways. I was mentioning servers. I did not mean servers. I actually meant data center hubs, which are just a collection of servers. And there's not 3 or 2. There's 15. The big ones I already mentioned in there: New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. But there are others. Is funny enough, one of the ones that I was thinking of: Virginia, Northern Virginia, and then Dallas, Silicon Valley, Phoenix, Atlanta, Portland, Seattle. All those 15 contain 50% of all servers, and they are all around coastlines and seas on coastals. The closest being like Silicon Valley, which is closer to the middle. I guess Phoenix and Atlanta are pretty close, but none of them are internally inside besides Chicago. So yeah, 50% of all servers in those 15 cities I just mentioned. Nothing, not close to the 3 servers I was mentioning, but still holds up to what I was saying, where all those data centers are there and they're owned by companies that are not video game companies. So take my numbers with a grain of salt, but the concept of the idea is still there. Thank you. Back to the podcast. There are 3 servers, major servers in the US. One's in LA, one's in New York, and one is in, I want to say Virginia, but that's a backup server. So yeah, so there are 2 major ones, New York and LA. Excuse me, not in Virginia. It's in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
So those are the 3 cities that have like majority of the servers, and the one that is the most expensive is LA. With New York being very close. I will say New York is also fucking expensive.
I mean, they're
Well, yeah, but you think about it, George. Those are the 2 most expensive cities in the world. Why wouldn't you just relocate to get away from those taxes, get away from the charge of owning those buildings in those areas?
It makes working worse because you have to work on those servers, which will increase in ping if you're moving further away.
Why can't they just add more servers? Why can't they just invest in that?
Because that's an expensive thing that a game company doesn't want to invest in. So like majority of game companies servers, like Microsoft, have in-house ones. Microsoft is fine. Sony, aka PlayStation, is also fine on this. Nintendo also has their in-house servers. Smaller companies, example, Daybreak Games, which just released people, they don't own servers. They have, excuse me 1 second.
Get it together, Gerard. Just get it together, bro. This is on the bloopers. What's going on there?
A lot of things went off that you guys didn't hear because I muted myself.
Yeah, it's going in the bloopers.
We'll see. As I was saying, the smaller companies that did layoffs, they don't have access to their servers, so they just pay, like, they have a third party, like either Amazon running their servers or their publisher running their servers, or whatever company they're doing it through, like Steam would have some servers as well that they can pay for. And those are going to be in those locations I talked about, LA and New York or Chicago. So if you want to reduce the ping and increase your like upload speed and your download speed, you have to be closer to those cities. And then you have like Silicon Valley, which is a good example, just like congregation of tech industries, and like going out to the middle of US, which would be the cheaper alternative rather than be on the coast, takes you further away from those infrastructures, from those tech infrastructures. It increases latency between you and the server. It increases the cost of putting new infrastructure up. And it's just too expensive for the short term rather than the long term. However, companies don't want to do that because it's very expensive to do that without the immediate profit. But I. Oh, okay.
To touch on that though, you said for the immediate profit. Would it, using the boom, be a good time to invest that money? That would have been the smart thing to do with that money, was invested into doing those kind of things and predict what was going to happen. That's just me.
That's hindsight 2020. But yes.
But that's what I mean. They didn't think of what to do with that extra money when it came in. Like, they could have set themselves up.
They could have done a lot of things. They could have also just not hired a lot of people. They could have done so many things to avoid this, but they didn't, and that's why we're here. And that's why we're blaming them. Yeah, that's why we're discussing it. You could tell them 1,000 things they could have done, and any of them would have been right, all right? But the reason why we're having this conversation is because they didn't do any of those 1,000 things.
Which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad when you think of most of these people in these positions have degrees for this shit. They've been doing it for a long time. They probably worked for multiple different companies before they became the CEO or whatever chief of these companies, and you still didn't think about that. Like, you've done this, you've seen the cycle of history of business, you know how this works. There's always peaks and valleys. Prepare for the valleys.
I mean, they don't have to prepare for the valleys. Just have a plan for it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them are. You always want to think of success, of your company, but you also want to have a plan if things doesn't pan out. And maybe they didn't think all the way through. Maybe they had a plan. It just didn't work. I mean,
but I think it's what Gerard said though about it's going to cost them a lot right now, and they don't want to take the hit right now to see the gains in the future, because the future's too far away for them right now. But if they would have planned this back in 2021, when they got that extra boom of profit and said, oh, let's do this with that extra profit. That's all I'm saying. And then that's why I say it just comes back to greed, because the reason a lot of these layoffs are happening is because investors don't find the profit that they got acceptable. Not that they didn't profit. They just don't find it to their liking.
Yeah, but at the time when the investors are going to the boom, they're not thinking about the future either. So it's not it's a situation. And we're not in the boardroom to hear what the execution or the plan was, but they just didn't plan well enough, and this is the repercussion of it.
But they're not the only ones. They're really not. I hate to say it, because like I said, I've seen it in the retail world. Being in the retail world, 2020 threw off everything because everybody got so stoked up. We had all this extra merchandise that we had ordered because we couldn't meet the demand. And then when it all came in 2022, because of delays and everything that happened after the pandemic happened.
Oh, okay, that word. Okay.
That is just damn, you made me lose my train of thought. But
it was necessary.
I mean, it's almost like playing the socks. You put all the eggs in one basket, thinking that it's going to last, and the risk is there, and you didn't plan well. What happens when it goes up? Yeah, so it's like almost playing stock market. It's just you take the risk, didn't work out, and now, like I said, you're facing the consequences from it, and that's just throughout the economy, and not just the tech.
So here's my issue too, Gerard, and I want to see what you think about it in the sense, like, I feel when it comes to the world of technology right now, and every industry is impacted because technology impacts every industry in a sense. They're so focused on investing in technology that they're forgetting to invest in the people that help make the technology. You understand what I'm saying?
Explain.
So like, some of this extra money, so much extra money that they make in profit, they put back into technology, right? Because they want to get advanced and stuff like that, and I get that. But instead of letting people go, maybe putting a little extra money in people's pockets. Now that sounds unrealistic because that's just the way the business world works. It's like, oh, no, they're not going to pay you more. That sounds crazy. Why would they pay you more when you made them more money? But if you pay people more, they're happier, they work better, your productivity is going to be better. the quality of the work is going to be better. The quality of content that's going to be put out there for movies, gaming is going to continue to be better. But like I said, they rather invest in technology and then invest in, hey, we'll get you some mental help because we're going to work you to hell.
I wouldn't say the salary of the devs that are working are one-to-one with the quality of work they do. There are some companies that pay their employees very well, and they ship out horrible games. And then there are indie games who have literally nickeled and dimed can't afford to pay their employees anymore, and they're making amazing games. Once again, Palworld is an example. And I can use other examples of just indie companies or startups that just don't have any money and will make amazing games. So I don't think, and don't get me wrong, while I say this, I 100% agree. More like game devs should be paid more and receive raises if they do well, and release a good game. But I don't think giving more money to devs would actually make the next product they make better.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Well, no, I'm not saying
that's gonna make the product better if they just paid more.
I will say it would decrease the amount of burnout or make loyal employees or like good employees, plays that made the great game, stay with the company if their pay went up. So it increases their retention and allows them to speak well of the company and not feel as burnt out. But I don't think it has any direct impact to the video games that they're creating themselves.
No, I would say how I meant that was like if you take that extra money and you invest in people and you invest into people's livelihood, chances are, realistically, in any workforce, productivity is going to be better when you have happy employees. And when you put a little bit of money back in those pockets, I'm not saying every person is going to perform better because they're being paid more. But at the end of the day, they understand that they're bosses. And if somebody's not meeting the expectation, then there's routes and accountability and stuff you go like that. I get that 100%. All I'm saying is it would be nice to see them invest in their people more so than the technology that's just going to fund their pockets and eventually affect the people that are helping make what they have right now. Because before the people were there, they had nothing. They don't have these companies without the people that help build it from the ground up.
But I also counter that because when you do a job interview, you negotiate your salary. And some jobs, most jobs, you should be just
no one negotiating McDonald's price. Sorry.
You can.
Some jobs might gotta be more clever.
You can.
You're like,
we're
gonna give you $8.25. I want $8.50, and I'm like, nah.
I did a Burger King interview before. Sad to say, not sad to say, because it's a job,
Work is work.
Continue what you were saying, right?
You could always negotiate if you feel your value is worth more. But if it's the market, if you do your research into the market, it's just what the market is. Because some of these product gamers has like compensations. Like the pay might not be good, but you know what? The bonuses or the commissions may be better. It just depends on the package that they are receiving. Because okay, go ahead.
Someone.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I combat you on that bonus structure because how many times have we seen companies alter the bonus to kind of screw people out of what they should have made? Because that's what happened with Infinity Ward and Activision when Activision owed the original Infinity Ward team $400 million that they didn't want to pay out.
I mean, if there was no contract signed, I don't know.
I don't know if Gerard knows the details on that, but I know there was a big deal with them not getting paid. And like you said, their initial pay is not as good. I'd rather be balanced, if I'm being honest, because I've been under that structure where you get a bonus and you get your basic salary. If you ask me, hey, I'll give you 50% less or 25% less, on your overall bonus, but you'll get that 25% in your guaranteed salary, I'll take that shit because I'm guaranteed to get that.
But the reason why I'm countering because when you just bring up that company, but I'm just saying like in a general statement and generalized. Yeah, there's gonna be companies that probably what you mentioned, Activision not paying. Yeah, I get that. There are times like that, but I'm just talking in a more generalization where you can negotiate your pay, and it's if you feel like you value more, then sometimes at the end of the day, the company is gonna have a limit. They really do. They probably have, as I know HR, they probably have a max that they are willing to pay a person. Every company has that because they don't want to overpay. Because if you overpay one, and your other workers find out like, oh man, they can't pay this. I'm doing the same amount of work. It's gonna cause a riot, to be said. But I just want to counter you on that. Where it's like sometimes it does work both ways. Where like sometimes you just gotta negotiate your pay. You'll get paid better.
Yeah, I will say this. For developers, software engineers, and things like that, you do negotiate your pay because you coming in with experience and skills that you can't really talk to or show in an interview. Besides, like, I know what I'm talking about. The only way I can show you is by talking about it or by showing you, because technology is a field of creativity, and it's hard to show creativity in templated tests and templated interviews. So negotiations do happen a lot at those tables of just like, hey, this is what I'm expecting. Even like some recruiters will ask like, hey, what do you expect from this position? What are you looking for? What is the amount you want? And then we'll work from there. But another thing is that the gaming industry specifically this is for developers, praise on passion. A lot of devs are very passionate about their work. They love making games. They love video games. They grew up with video games. They love what they do. And the higher ups, the publishers and things like that, know that gamers and turn into game devs. So they go, hey, you're gonna be responsible for making our game, a AAA game. It's gonna be your passion project. We'll pay you money to do this, something you've always wanted to do. This is your dream job. You're going to not take a lot of money, and also you're going to be working 60-hour weeks, and you're going to have crunch times when deadlines are coming, and we will only push back once. And you have, as a dev, you have to meet that expectation only because every MIG company is doing the exact same thing. Now, they're smaller companies, like a good example is just like From Software or like the Japanese companies or like European companies. There's some indie startup companies which will give you that freedom and just like things like that. But they're making games that are not financially secure. You don't know if after that game releases, you'll still have a job. But now this idea that like you don't know if you're going to have a job anymore has escalated to the AAA companies as well. Because now you don't know when the next layoff is going to happen. And is it going to be my company? Is it going to be my friend's company? Where is it going to be? Am I being laid off because the company itself, even though it made a profit, still did not meet their goals? They're on high expectations, and I'm being laid off because my job is considered redundant? Or is it because even though we made a great product, the company itself has been spending elsewhere, and they're doing R&D, and they just need to cut a whole bunch of jobs to pay for those R&Ds. So one of those jobs is mine. Good. That's an example for Hashbro and D&D, when Larian Studios made so much money with Baldur's Gate 3, and they still got hit because D&D not D&D, the owners of the Wizards of the Coast bleeds money like nobody's business. Oh, Hasbro bleeds money that nobody, and Wizards of the Coast makes up that money. and Larian Studios making Baldur's Gate 3 makes that money. They have to cut costs somewhere, and even though one side is where you would cut it, that side that is working for you also needs to get cut. So it is a problem in the tech industry with managers and just supervision on all fronts, either overhiring or not taking accounts of R&D spending, or not like facilitating. And that's why you were bringing up mental health. That's why the mental health is there. Not only are they not getting like substantial pay, they're also working hard day in, day out for a creative output or a creative like solution, and they just don't get any recognition. You know what they do get? They get hate mail when someone butchers their game and they just don't like the game. And they'll receive praise once in a while, but that hate mail weighs 3 times more than that praise.
I definitely agree with that.
Oh yeah,
That's really in any kind of job, really, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yes, I get that. I get that point.
So I will end on this note. Developers, I won't even include myself in this, but like video game developers specifically, my heart goes out for you, especially if you've been laid off recently and looking for a job. I hope you get one, more security, finding a job very quickly, and also 2, I hope good things come into the future and that you get a secure job that you can work until you retire. Because the layoffs, man, they suck. They suck so much. Like, close friends of mine have been near laid off. They were in the company. They were in Epic. A lot of people on insecure, because if the AAAs are doing this, what about the other companies, the lower companies that were depending on those AAAs?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I leave it off with that note. Thank you for watching this video and this topic. If you have any comments or any thoughts or feedback, let us know down below. And a question before we leave: what company shocked you in their layoffs? Or better yet, what company disgusted you with their layoffs and their reason? Let us know. And we'll see you next time on the PTGC podcast. Peace. Thank you for watching this episode of the Part-Time Gamers podcast. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And follow us on our other social platforms on TikTok, Instagram, and Discord. Links for those will be provided in the description. Thank you again. We will see you on the next episode of the podcast. And make sure you make some time for video games. Peace.